So the Tomb of Sargeras, did you know it was housing something far more sinister than the Avatar of Sargeras below it?
Well, hello there, little boy. Don't be shy. Step right up on the reasonable guy. Don't be frightened by the look in my eye. I'm just your average evil meteor from out of the sky.
So if you are a raider of the Tomb of Sargeras, which I've only done the first wing on LFR of it, you quickly notice the many settings the tomb has. At first you notice it is foul corrupted, obviously. Then in other areas it is a tribute to the goddess of Alone, so very Night Elf looking, very pretty, and Night Elf structures of the moon and stuff. And then lastly, at the very bottom of the Tomb of Sargeras is a Titan Vault, with a fallen avatar of Sargeras right there. Quite interesting, is it not? So before the Tomb of Sargeras was known as the Tomb of Sargeras, it was originally a structure of the Titans, all the way out here on the broken shore. Now to many people, they would simply shrug it off. It's just a Titan's facility, there's nothing really there but the Avatar of Sargeras and a few Titan-forged guards. But when you dig out your handy-dandy Chronicles Volume 1 book, and you piece together the maps like so, and ta-da! Notice anything in particular? N'Zoth's prison. Very close to where the Broken Shore is, don't you think? Now to many of you, you are probably thinking to yourselves, but wait, the Tomb of Sargeras and that location are not even close. Not to mention the island was raised from the seas below by Gul'dan. Theory is over. Right you are, my friend, but at the same time consider this. Most Titan structures are much larger than they at first appear to be. The tomb was an entrance point for the Titan Forge of old, much like how Ulduar the city was vast and had underground locations embedded into it. Was not so different to Ulduar, but the size was not as vast as the Titan city, as Ulduar was both a base for the Titan Forge and a prison for Yogg-Saron. The tomb was just a prison and a place for the Titan Forge to study the old god, N'Zoth. Not to mention, N'Zoth was the weakest of the old gods, and to them, they probably didn't take as many precautions as they did for the others, stated by Zalatash.
It was here, in ages past, that the god of the deep lost a great battle to the god of seven heads. But as was so often the case, even defeat ultimately worked in N'Zoth's favor.
I believe this is stated when you arrive on the Broken Shore, but I could be wrong. Notice how when she says,
"But as was so often the case, even defeat ultimately worked in N'Zoth's favor."
So, this can also go with the case of the Pantheon and the Titan Forge. They probably underestimated N'Zoth. They underestimated him. They pretty much were like, okay, this old god's pretty easy to beat. We really don't need to put as many precautions. Plus, N'Zoth is the first one to fall. They're not going to have as many, thoughts and feels about such an old god if it's weak like this. And they probably built the prison right afterwards, and they thought it was okay, because this is an old god, it's not as weak, let's just leave it be, and leave these guards here to make sure it doesn't escape. And, then they go on to kill the other old gods, Y'Shaarj, who gets actually killed by Amathul, who reaches down and plucks him up and kills him. And then there's Cthulhu, who gets defeated not as easily, but probably more easier than Yogg-Saron. And then lastly, Yogg-Saron, who was the last old god to get imprisoned, and he was the second strongest from the way they tell us. So, yeah. So N'Zoth was underestimated and placed in such a small facility. Kind of similar to Cthulhu, but Cthulhu, I believe they used his own temple as his prison. For N'Zoth, I think they just built a little facility, kind of like Y'Shaarj's heart.
It is ironic that the weakest of us may be the ultimate victor. Cthulhu, Yogg-Saron, Y'Shaarj, and, well, only one would remain to consume the world that was always meant to be.
So years would pass and the Titan facility would be forgotten with its hosts inside of it. The Night Elves would build up a structure of their own on the tomb and make it their Temple of Elune, dedicated to her, while below them slept the body of N'Zoth, who was weaving together his own plans. Then the sundering occurred and the temple sunk below the seas. The prison, being only slightly damaged in the process, was not broken quite yet. While everything was sinking, splitting, or otherwise, N'Zoth found that Azshara and her people were sinking to the depths, and would perish. Being the clever being that N'Zoth was, he reached out to the queen and her people and offered them a way to withhold their judgment, by becoming the Naga and agents of N'Zoth.
Join my crew and postpone the judgment.
During the War of the Ancients, the Highborn, or as we call them now, the Nightborn, had stopped a portal from being opened, right in their Temple of Elune, by applying the Pillars of Creation along with their own magics, stopping the portal from being used. Years upon years later, the guardian Aegwynn would discover the structured Temple of Elune, and would use it as a place to house the Avatar of Sargeras' body, along with a few other demons she had captured. The Temple of Elune's name being shattered, and in place of it now was what we call it today, the Tomb of Sargeras. Interestingly enough, Aegwynn also discovered the original structure and charged one of the Titanforge to guard the Avatar's body. Now I found that peculiar, but perhaps Aegwynn and the Titanforge came to some kind of agreement, or she used her magics to convince the Titanforge. Either way, I saw this as yet another plus for N'Zoth. Now the Titanforge in charge of his prison were preoccupied with the Avatar's body, which radiated and felt energies corrupting them. During the Second War on Azeroth, our main universe Gul'dan would raise the Tomb of Sargeras and its island upward, and with it, I would imagine the detachment or breaking of N'Zoth's prison. I believe by this time the Titanforge, left in charge of keeping him imprisoned, were preoccupied by the constant shifting of their study, or were preoccupied by Aegwynn in keeping their eyes on the Avatar. Either way, the tomb was raised up again, and the foolish warlock sought the power that the Avatar held, only to be slaughtered by demons within the tomb.
Damn you, Sargeras. I won't be beaten like this. I am Gul'dan. I am darkness incarnate. It cannot end like this.
Years later, Illidan and his band of Naga would also seek items from the tomb, and would shake the tomb with their powers of the artifact known as the Eye of Sargeras. I would imagine this would also damage the prison below if it is still attached, which is very important on whether it is or isn't. Either way, a lot of damage has been done to the tomb, temple, and or prison from the sundering. From being raised up and being shaken by the Eye of Sargeras, it is also possible that the damage from the Cataclysm added to the underwater prisons of N'Zoth's damage. Once more stated by Xal'atath,
Something has changed. The last prison weakens. We must prepare. It appears the prison of N'Zoth is not as strong as it once was. What you see is a tiny growth of the behemoth that may yet consume your world.
This is stated when you encounter Il'gynoth in the Emerald Nightmare. So, N'Zoth's prison is very damaged at the moment in my eyes, and it's about to get a lot more worse. So, we're now in the present day, where Gul'dan from the alternate universe has re-entered the tomb, and disabled the runes that Aegwynn had placed there. In doing so, the portal was re-established and the Legion would return. Now the heroes of Azeroth marched into the tomb and began their raid on the Legion's forces and hunt down the Deceiver. To stop the portal from being activated, 5 Pillars of Creation are used to close the portal. Now remember where N'Zoth is? Just below the tomb, and very deep as well, quoted by Il'gynoth, who also harbors a connection to N'Zoth.
5 keys to open our way. 5 torches to light our path.
Being the heroes that we are, we fight down the demons, we set down the pillars necessary for closing of the portal, and we hunt down Kil'jaeden and defeat him. Now our efforts from the tomb are now directed up at Argos. Our attention, just like the Titanforge, is placed elsewhere. The keys placed where they're needed, and now all that is necessary is to turn them.
The Lord of Raven
While we fight on Argos, we will return to a broken world. N'Zoth will be set loose upon the world. His tentacles dug into Azeroth are now ripped out, damaging the crust of Azeroth and leaving a gaping wound. Far worse than what Deathwing or the Sundering did. N'Zoth is free and chaos reigns supreme. But that's just my idea. Well, those are my thoughts on what the Tomb's origins are, and what lies in the future for us. I hope you enjoyed my theory, and if you did, like my video, subscribe, and if not, provide feedback on what I can improve on. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all, hopefully, in the next video. See ya!
God of the deep writhes in his prison, breaking free ever so slowly. You should hurry and defeat the fallen titan. There are greater battles yet to fight.